You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
we have an unidentified FAB Facts Object incoming.
Some secret plans have been swept off into space in the Randomiser.
and author Joan Marie Verba joins us to talk Thunderbirds
That's all coming up in Pod 108.
of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Happy birthday, dear Chris.
The Randomiser General
and really nice chap,
sort of uber fan,
massive fan,
and knows a lot about all
source
sorts
of information.
stuff, and everyone tunes in just for the Randomiser. Happy birthday to you. I got which key are you in? Oh, there we are. Got
Beautiful,
it. Right. Yes,
beautiful.
yes.
Happy birthday, Chris Dale.
Happy birthday, Chris Dale.
It's literally
There.
his birthday today, the day of release, the 6th of
How
July,
auspicious.
2020. 35 years young.
Is that all?
I know.
He's achieved so much.
I know. Hundreds of
Crikey.
not hundreds of randomizers, but over 100 randomizers.
Yeah.
And, general researcher and video maker and lovely
Yes.
chap extraordinaire. So, Chris, thank you for everything. Happy birthday. And long may your fine services to the world of Gerry Anderson continue.
Here. And maybe at some point we could actually meet up and have that birthday drink. That would be nice.
Absolutely. Well,
Gosh.
I'm sure we've got another visit to the BFI due when that sort of thing is possible.
Yeah,
so
that'd be great. Yeah,
watch
absolutely.
this space.
Indeed.
Anyway, so this is the Chris Dale birthday podcast. No,
It
it's
might
not.
as well be.
It's actually the Gerry Anderson podcast, Pod 108. What happens here, Richard?
Well, Jamie Anderson, this is where we spend a little bit of time celebrating and talking about the world's universes and achievements and legacy of Gerry Anderson.
And Chris Dale.
We've got, of course, yes, well, I was about to say we do have his randomiser coming up.
Yes.
A little later on. We've got some news from the Gerry Anderson universe because there's always stuff happening. We've got Fab Facts in just a moment. We've got Jamie's interview with Joan Marie Verba a little later.
Oh, yes.
And of course, we'll be poking around in our post bag for all those lovely emails that people have been sending in to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. I'll be reading out some tweets because, as ever, people have been hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast and tagging him. I'm Jamie Anderson and me, Richard N. James. And also heading over... Yes?
And Chris Dale
What?
at Chris Dalek.
How could I on his birthday?
I know, what's wrong with you?
I'm so sorry. And finally, we'll be heading over to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons to see what's been going on there.
Great. And we'll be referencing Chris Dale's birthday from time to time
Of course,
throughout this
because
special
it's his
edition.
birthday. Now, Jamie, I have to say, we've changed the way we record these podcasts a little bit recently, haven't we? In that we used to do it via FaceTime on our phone so we could actually see each other.
Yes.
I'm quite relieved that we've stopped doing that now because just yesterday, Charlotte cut my hair. Yeah.
Wow. How is it?
Well, let's just say she'll be doing the other half tonight.
Oh, please,
Yeah.
can you send me a picture?
Oh, no, I don't think I dare.
And can we put it on the Podsterons Facebook group?
Well, I did that thing of of looking online for, all these really handsome models with their perfect hair. And I said to Charlotte, that's the sort of thing I'd like.
The sort of thing. Well, you went wrong
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and it doesn't look quite the same on me.
Wow. Well, I cannot wait to see it. And obviously you'll be returning the favour and cutting her hair, I assume?
She won't let me near it.
Isn't that strange?
I know. Funny
Especially
that,
now.
isn't it? Yes, exactly.
Oh, well, I hope that you'll show me this image later on. I can't wait to see it.
All right, I'll see.
Now, just to distract you from your terrible haircut, shall we go straight
yes.
into some Fab Facts?
Okay.
Here it is.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Fab Facts, Richard, your favourite,
Oh, yes.
my favourite,
Yeah.
everyone's favourite, except for you. Yes, I know. All right, you don't have to say anything about it. I've got a book of Fab
rude.
Facts. I'm going to flip through the book of Fab Facts. You're going to shout Fab at a random point. I'm going to stop when you shout Fab and deliver us all one of the fabbest facts of the Fab Facts-iverse. Are you ready?
Born ready.
Here we go.
Fab!
Oh, you waited till later this time. Trying to escape the worlds of Captain Scarlet, eh?
Yes.
I thought you
Did
liked
manage
Captain
it?
Scarlet. Yes, you
I do.
absolutely have.
Ah.
We've actually ended up in the 1990s, but with a link
Right.
back to 1969/1970. Eagle-eyed UFO fans, or eagle-eared. Is eagle-eared the right term? What would be the equivalent, I suppose?
No, I don't think it's eagle-eared.
Bat-eared?
Oh, I don't know about that either.
Anyway, people paying attention and UFO
Sharp-eared.
fans.
No.
We'll have to look that
that's
up
not
and
right.
find something for
Yeah,
later.
Yeah.
UFO fans may know what I'm talking about already. So, UFO 2.
Hey?
UFO 2. So, obviously, you know, the
Right.
original series of UFO 2 became Space 1999, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Well, there was potentially going to be a UFO 2 in the 1990s. So,
okay.
in 1996, Australian fan Albert Hastings was inspired to create a follow-up to the original UFO, which was going to be entitled UFO 2.
Right.
I mean, it
okay.
makes sense, doesn't it?
It's a little bit rude, isn't it? But anyway, carry on.
Is it?
Well, no, go on.
I see what you're saying there, but no, Richard. Get that mind out the gutter.
Yes, sorry.
No, Albert's idea was to continue the original story, starring Major General Straker, Brigadier General Alec Freeman. You see, they've all been
yeah.
sent up the ranks.
Very good.
And those two now commanded a greatly expanded shadow organisation and had even forged alliances with 2 other alien races to protect the Earth from a variety of other aliens.
Ah.
Yes, so it's not just the organ harvesting originals in the red suits with the green liquid containing helmets,
Yeah,
but other aliens
yeah.
to be involved as well. Now, I vaguely remember Albert approaching Dad, sending him a letter, I think, with the treatment in, saying, here's what I'm trying to bring together. Would you be okay if I tried to get it off the ground? And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Dad said, I mean, give it a go. Yeah, absolutely. If it happened, then fantastic. So he got blessing from Dad and Ed Bishop as well.
Right.
But unfortunately, the project fell apart, as these things often do, because if you're going to try and build this world of massive shadow organisation, all the kind of UFOs, different alien races, all that kind of stuff, it became very, very expensive.
Yes. Does sound a bit overconfident, doesn't it?
Well, you put these kind of massive, elaborate plots and storylines together, and you suddenly go, right, how are we going to do that? Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's going to cost £1 million for that 30 seconds. Oh,
Yes.
right. So, yeah, it wasn't going to happen. Anyway, but strangely, Albert actually contacted Film Australia. And working for Film Australia at the time was a producer-director named Michael Mundell.
Right.
Michael had been in the original UFO TV series. Strangely,
okay.
as interceptor pilot Ken Matthews in Unidentified and Computer Affair. He's at the very end of the opening titles, you see him.
I
So
see.
he couldn't support the project as part of Film Australia, but he did reply in character as pilot Ken Matthews to give the series his blessing as well.
So it's canon then, that
Well,
reply.
bit awkward because actually Ken Matthews had been blown to bits in Computer Affair. Orcs. Anyway, if you want to find out more about this series and actually read that letter in particular, you can find it on ufoseries.com, which is a rather marvellous UFO fan website.
Right.
So that's that. That might have happened. Now, also, I'll add on to this. This isn't actually written in my book of Fab Facts, but there was
Yeah.
a UFO movie attempt put together by producer and VFX consultant and supervisor Matthew Gratzner. And I remember there was a website for that. They must have approached Dad about that on a grumpier day, because I'm pretty sure I remember reading a fairly unpleasant email that he sent them saying, this script is terrible. I mean, I'm
Right.
paraphrasing there and not giving you the full detail
Yeah.
because...
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were some discussions
Okay.
over characterization and various other things and bits that Dad didn't think were believable. Anyway, sadly, that one also fell apart, I believe, for financing reasons. It's just very difficult to get new things, and particularly remakes of British skewing cult TV
Right.
off the ground. If it
Because
didn't...
it's thought it won't have an international appeal?
Exactly. Well, you know, I can't remember the exact figures, but essentially, when it comes to kind of sales and potential future licensing, 30 to 50% of income will come from the United States.
Yeah.
So they figure heavily in the decision as to whether stuff is going to get made, and UFO was never that big in the US.
And also, is there a case that as we get further away in time from these sort of classic series from the 70s and 80s, is it more unlikely that there will ever be a reboot or a remake of them, do you think? Or is that irrelevant?
That is a tough one. I don't think it's irrelevant at all. I think for me, one of the great sadnesses has been how really there's always been an appetite to have all the shows broadcast, but for various reasons, mostly the decisions of third-party owners or licensees or licensors of the properties, they've held them back, and there's never been a really unified front. We've been doing our best, as Podsterons will know, but we're doing it right now in this very podcast, to try and unify all the stuff and make sure it's constantly out there and available. And there's moved towards it, like putting all the stuff on BritBox in the UK and having Shout Factory handling all the properties in the US. But even there, I don't think they've got UFO. I think somebody else has got UFO.
Right.
They should be under one roof, and it's so frustrating. Yeah. And I think actually that's to the detriment of all Anderson shows.
Because there's no one place that you can go to where you can find them all.
Yeah, exactly. Marvel has a home. It's all in blooming Disney Plus now, isn't it? But you know what I mean? They all kind of sit together and they're treated together, whereas Anderson stuff never is, which makes me rather sad. But we're doing our best to make sure it is, and I think we've had a fairly positive effect on that front. Richard.
Great.
Obviously, I've been you, me, and Chris. Nothing else, but
I've had a lot to do with it, as you know.
Well, totally. But it all helps, kind of just keeping it in public consciousness. But the longer these things aren't available, the more they fade from public consciousness, the less chance there are of remakes. So we'll keep doing our damnedest to make these things happen, won't we?
You're right.
Anyway, that's quite enough, I think. So, shall we bring this one to an end?
All right, then.
Okay, well, that's the end of this week's Remake Fact.
Yeah, very good. Interesting. I wonder often, what's the closest you think we've actually been to seeing a remake or a reboot on our screens?
Well, there's a remake.
Before it all went.
There is a remake that was planned a few years ago that I can't share any information about.
Right.
That had a really great showrunner attached.
Yeah.
A lovely pilot script, loads of stuff, all come together, finance, broadcasters, and then it fell apart. And it was was going to be fantastic as far as I can tell.
Right.
And unfortunately, I think there may have been a point where, unfortunately, there was a too many chefs element coming into play.
Okay.
And then when people are sort of busy and thinking, actually, is this going to be worth it? No. And so that was that.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Well, it's the opposite problem here in that we don't have enough chefs, do we? Because if we did, we could have made a lovely birthday cake for Chris Dale, couldn't we?
Oh, yes, Chris Dale. Happy birthday, Chris.
Happy birthday, Chris.
Now, can I suggest, Podsterons, that if you're on Twitter, that you go to your Twitter account and tweet a message to @ChrisDalek. If you use the hashtag Happy Birthday, Chris Dale, then I will search for that hashtag, and for one of you random tweeters wishing Chris Dale a happy birthday, I will send you a lovely print of a Bob Bell painting of the Tracy Lounge being filmed in use.
Oh, lovely.
So there you go.
That's nice.
There's an incentive, not just to wish him a happy birthday, but also to be in it for yourself. Hashtag Happy Birthday, Chris Dale, @ChrisDalek. And yes, I'll pick one of you at random next week to win that print.
Very nice. People have been getting in touch, of course, at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
So they
James, for example, says, "Hi, guys. As always, loving the podcast and the new merch coming through the store. I had an amazing opportunity to talk with Ken Palco whilst doing the second table read for Firestorm.
Yes.
Very interesting career thus far, with a lot of great work on the horizon. Would be great to have him as a guest on the podcast. Thanks again for making Mondays a favourite day of the week. All the best and stay safe, James." So who is Ken, Jamie?
Kenny Palco is a prop fabricator, designer, builder, very nice chap. I'm trying to think where our paths first crossed. Probably at a convention in the US 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Yeah. He makes some amazing stuff, beautiful props, and
lovely.
He's one of those really smart people who, a lot of props when they're built, they're kind of flimsy and light, and so I don't know, just you maybe lose a bit of realism and believability when the props are being handled. But if he makes a gun prop for a sci-fi show, it is the weight of a real weapon. These things are big and proper and heavy, and he had a sword from Percy Jackson, I think, the film.
Oh, yes,
at this event, and I wielded it
Right. Uh-oh.
And goodness me, I mean, that thing felt like it could have taken someone's head off.
Great.
It didn't, because obviously I'm very good at wielding swords. But yeah, just beautiful props, really talented guy, and a lovely human being as well. So yes, I will see if Kenny has got some time for a chat in the coming months.
Nice. Ian Thompson says, hi, Jamie and Richard.
Hello.
Yeah. Listening to part 2 of the interview with Morgan Jeffrey in Pod 107, and Jamie's question about rebooting a part of Gerry's work got me on a slightly different train of thought. What if you took one element of one show and combined it with another part of a show to create a device to reboot something about one of the shows, or even create a new plot point for another show?
Oh, don't ask him that, Ian, because now Richard's going to go, well, I'll tell you what you could do. You take Officer Orin and put him in any other show, it'd be amazing.
Yes. Now, that would work, wouldn't it? Anyway, Ian says, let me give you a simplistic example.
Okay.
Take the actual craft Stingray.
Yeah.
Combine the qualities and abilities of Supercar, so not only is it a submarine, but it can fly. Move it to Thunderbirds, and you can totally reboot the Thunderbirds 6 movie.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could.
Can you skip out the Stingray bit and just make it Supercar? Because Supercar could go under the sea, couldn't it?
Fair enough.
Although
He
it's
says
also
also
the look, I suppose.
As an added bonus, he says you could also get rid of the scary laughing puppets too. Well, what do you think? And do any of the Podsterons have any better ideas? That should be an easy one compared to my feeble effort, he says. Not at all, Ian. And he finishes off by saying, I always love the podcast and always waiting for Richard to name drop 0X infrequently. To be fair, well played, Mr. James. You did very well, as did everyone else involved with 0X. Kindest regards, Ian Thompson. Yeah, well, I wasn't going to mention it, Ian, but as you brought it up, yeah, Planet of Bones is available on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, and I did happen to pop over there to see a few comments. Would you like to hear what people have made of it, Jamie?
That's strange. Is that you looking at people's comments on your own work, Richard James?
No, not really. Anyway, well, yes. Robert's Video Madness, for example, posted, this series has been fantastic. I'd love to see one of the Space Precinct strips from the 90s done like this.
How funny.
Funny that. This lovely name, Brian Artillery, says
great.
He would suggest Prisoners of the Eye Leaves, which I believe is another story that could be adapted. Possibly the creepiest story ever published in a children's comic. Kept me out of the garden for ages.
Interesting.
Quillipen said, I enjoyed this whole story, a great way of bringing the TV21 stories to life in a way that can be enjoyed by a new audience. Any more of these in the pipeline? And my favourite one was simply by someone who signed themselves a man, who just said very enjoyable and brought back good old memories.
Yes, a lot of people saying that it had a really, really powerful nostalgic effect, which is great to hear.
So this featured the art of
Mike Noble.
That was then updated and animated by Chris Thompson, and given voice by several Gerry Anderson alumni. Available in 3 parts on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel.
Yes, indeed. And there probably will be more, I will say
nice.
that. Although we obviously will have to talk about your fee, Richard.
I have just moved house and the mortgage doesn't pay itself.
All right. Kind of emotional blackmail now, is it? Goodness me.
Plus, I need a decent haircut.
Yes, well, that doesn't matter for the audio. This is the Chris Dale birthday edition of the Gerry Anderson podcast, Pod 108.
Hooray!
Shall we go into some Gerry Anderson news?
Yeah!
Here it is. Haircutty news. Richard, can you lead us in with the headlines just to remind people if they've missed it? What's happened to your hair this week?
Well, in the most exciting Gerry Anderson news to date, I've had a haircut and my wife did it. I say I've had half a haircut and my wife did it.
Brilliant. Could it be
it's
really
2 parts?
Classified as a haircut? Is it more of a kind of
it's quite short.
Trichological insult?
Possibly. I mean, where it's short, it's very short.
Okay. I can't wait to see this.
It's still quite long.
Anyway, believe it or not, this is actually the Gerry Anderson podcast, and this is the Gerry Anderson news.
Yes.
And I've just got a few quick tidbits for you this week.
Great.
If you like Terrorhawks as much as I do, then you'll be pleased to know that From Here to Infinity is now available for free on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gerry Anderson TV. That episode was chosen, I believe, by Ross Arrowsmith, who does a lot of our video work and manages the YouTube channel, so thank you, Ross. Go over there and give it a watch. Because because it's free, innit?
Yeah.
So, yeah, do that. Now, Richard, it's July. What's the first sort of thing you think about in July?
Chris Dale's birthday.
Chris Dale's birthday, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else Chris something-y?
Time to get a haircut. Oh, Christmas?
Yeah, Christmas, absolutely. That's the first thing
yeah.
I think about in July. Well, you'll
Yeah.
be pleased to know that the Christmas jumper, the Thunderbirds Christmas jumper for this year has been approved and has now entered production.
Right, wow.
So that will be available obviously later in the year. But last year it was all a bit tight with production, so we've made sure we started nice and early.
Very good.
In this summery weather. Chris Thompson obviously has handled the design work together with our manufacturer, and it's a lovely design. And Thunderbirds fans, I can give you an exclusive here.
Oh.
This design does feature Thunderbird 5.
Yay.
Oh yes. So you can look forward to that. It's a real stunner.
Yeah, last year's was lovely.
Well, this year's might be even better.
Beautiful.
Anyway, let's see. If you haven't listened to the Barry Gray edition of Sound of Cinema with Matthew Sweet and yours truly on BBC Sounds and BBC Radio 3, then go along and do that. I've had lots of lovely messages about that. Really sweet of you all, thank you. And really worth the listen, almost just to hear the special Crispin Morel piano rendition of Aquamarina at the very end.
Yeah, lovely.
It is something rather special. And sticking on a Barry Gray soundtrack theme, the Thunderbirds soundtrack has arrived in stock. Now, we're not allowed to release it just yet.
Oh.
But if you happen to have pre-ordered it, or you order it this week from the Gerry Anderson store, then you might get it on or possibly slightly before the day of release. Just saying.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I mean, obviously that shouldn't happen, but there, if there was a logistical error where things were sent out slightly early, you might get it a touch early. So just saying, that might happen. Anyway, I don't have any other Gerry Anderson news this week.
Right.
We've been busy doing bits and pieces in the background, haven't we, Richard? We've just had a lovely chat about all the amazing stuff that's happening.
Yes, very exciting.
I can't wait to share some more stuff with you, Podsterons, and the rest of the Gerry Anderson universe. But unless you have anything else you'd like to add, Richard?
No, I have nothing else to add.
Good, then that's the end of this week's Gerry Anderson news.
That was the news. Chris birthday news.
I was trying to drink coffee there.
You joined us. Sorry, Jamie. For a very special memorial edition. No, that's not right, is it?
No, that's rude.
Because that would imply that he's no longer with us.
Celebratory edition.
He's very much with us. A celebratory edition of the Gerry Anderson podcast to say cheers and happy birthday to Chris Dale, the amazing Randomiser General, who will be along a little bit later on with his own randomiser, of course. Now, you mentioned there, Jamie, in the news, your appearance on the Matthew Sweet programme Sound of Cinema.
I did.
Featuring the music of Barry Gray. Well, a few people tuned in, you might like to know. Mark
Yes,
Perkins,
glad
for
to hear
example. He wrote on our Facebook page, or group rather, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons. This was superb, says Mark. I've just listened for the third time. A few Barry Gray facts I never knew, and a presenter who clearly appreciated how talented Barry was. I know some of the versions played weren't soundtrack originals, but it didn't matter to me. The emotion and vision of his music shone through. Well done to everyone involved, says Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
And
Glad
that's
you
the key,
enjoyed
wasn't it? Matthew Sweet really does know his stuff, and
wow.
that, for me, was key, really.
Totally.
Because you certainly didn't.
There was a great bit that we had to cut out where he asked me a question about the music of UFO, and I just had to say, Matthew, I've got no idea. I'm really sorry. And then he quickly went, "Oh, okay. Well, it's very unfair to ask you a question you don't know about. So let me think of another one." And he thought on his feet and came up with a fantastic question, which thankfully I did know the answer to.
Yeah,
clever Matthew
great.
Sweet, stupid Jamie Anderson.
Ah, well, plus ça change. Anyway, and now talking of Thunderbirds Christmas jumpers in the news there, Rob Pollard posted, yes, while looking through my TV21 and Anderson-related comics, I found I have a knitting pattern book, like my mum used to make my Thunderbird 2 jumper when I was little. Now, that's sweet, isn't it? And finally, Rob Doyle, thanks to the network sale, I've nearly completed my Anderson collection.
Hurrah!
Well, I wasn't going to buy Torchy for full price, says Rob. Yeah, fair enough.
You'd have to pay me to get Torchy. Sorry.
That's right. Jamie,
yes.
Is there anything missing from your, I should imagine, fairly extensive Gerry Anderson collection that you'd like to get your hands on?
Ooh. Not really. I mean, I've got a fairly, as you might imagine, a fairly decent collection.
So not just DVDs, toys, models, clothing ranges. Is there anything you thought, I wish I had that? I mean, I'm not suggesting we all club together or anything.
No, I wouldn't do that. I'll tell you what.
No.
Oh, you've just reminded me of something rather cool, which I now can't give as my answer because I think it might come true. So I'm gonna leave that to one side.
Wow. Okay.
It's something rather exciting, and if it does happen, I shall be sharing it with you, Podsterons, and obviously you, Richard James, and
thanks.
birthday boy Chris Dale in due course.
Of course.
Isn't that weird? I'm actually pretty happy with my lovely collection of stuff. I mean, there's a few things from Gerry Anderson nostalgic history. I wish Dad had kept a few more bits and pieces.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
But even now, I've been going through some stuff for Anderson Insiders for our Patreon, scanning a load of new material for our archive, which will make its way up there shortly. And I have got some lovely stuff that he did keep. He kept some weird stuff, I mean...
Really?
Yeah, he didn't keep any Thunderbirds scripts or any puppets or any models or anything, but I've got an unfilmed script called Hello, Mr. Chips from 1978.
Which he kept. Okay.
Yeah, which he did keep.
Yeah.
And I've got various faxes between agents and stuff, which for some reason he kept. A load of boring contract stuff, which, you think, oh, fair enough, keep contracts, but no, stuff that's totally irrelevant or was never signed and completed. So, I haven't got any of the biggies, but I've got some really fascinating tidbits. What about you,
great.
Podsterons? What do you wish you could add to your Gerry Anderson collection?
Yes.
Let us know. Podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk, or what do they do on Twitter? I've forgotten.
Well, it's quite easy. Just hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast, or you tag him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard N. James, or him, Chris Dalek.
Perfect.
And wish him happy birthday, Chris.
Yes, hashtag happy birthday, Chris Dale. Done. Right, any more things you want to add in before we hand over to someone much smarter and much more erudite than us?
No, that sounds much more interesting. Let's do that.
Perfect. Well, as you all know, Podsterons, because we've said about it previously, unless this is the first time you're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast, in which you're probably thinking, well, why are they talking about this bloke's birthday all the time? We don't normally, but, as a one-off event or a once-annual event, that's what we're doing. Some time ago, we had a message on the Podsterons Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, mentioning a load of Thunderbirds books, which I wasn't previously aware of. These were they were written and released, rather, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, the late noughties, early 10s, whatever. And they were written by an author called Joan Marie Verba. So we got in touch with Joan. She had some books left, and we've now made them available by the Gerry Anderson store, and many of them are still available, although stock is running out fast. And I also said to Joan, do you know what, it'd be really lovely to hear from you, because we don't know many people who've created new Thunderbirds canon material in the 21st century. So she very kindly agreed to have a chat with me, and we talk about all sorts, about how she came across the worlds of Gerry Anderson, how she got into writing, she crossed over from fan fiction to professional publication, why she wrote the stories, if there was any potential for any more, and just her general reflections on all things Anderson. So here, in its entirety, in one part, is my chat with Joan Marie Verba.
Hello, my name is Joan Marie Verba, and I have written 6 Thunderbirds books. They were officially licensed and published between around 2008 and 2012. And I was happy to write them. As I said, I got the license from first Grenade Adventures and then ITV. My background with Anderson Productions is that very early on in my life, I saw Fireball XL5, which I loved, and Supercar, which I loved, and Stingray, which I loved. I didn't see too much of Thunderbirds when it was first broadcast in the United States. There wasn't a national release as there was with Stingray and Supercar and Fireball XL5. It was mostly a local release, and our local station kept preempting it for sports events. So I could only see bits and pieces of it. But what I saw, I enjoyed very much. So that in the early 2000s, when Thunderbirds became available on DVD, I bought the entire set, watched it multiple times, fell in love with it again.
Quite right, too.
Yes. And I thought, my goodness, there should be more stories. So I went and found used copies of previously published Thunderbird books, such as Ring of Fire. And I bought a number of nonfiction books about Thunderbirds, explaining the development, the cast, the character development, the special effects, everything that I could, I would buy and read. And I still thought, my goodness, there should be more stories. So eventually I was able to contract with Grenade Adventures and then ITV to write the stories. And I did, and it was wonderful. And I'm so glad that Jamie and Anderson Entertainment has taken a new interest in it. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the funny thing is, Joan, this has all happened through serendipity through the podcast, because one of our listeners, one of our Podsterons, sent in an email saying, oh, there's a fantastic prequel story, which was one of yours. And then I went off and looked you up and thought, oh, because I hadn't seen these before, because they came out around a time when I was being kept at arm's length from the business, and then when Dad was ill. And so they kind of passed me by entirely. So I dropped you a line, and you very kindly got back in very positive terms. And here we are, chatting all things Gerry Anderson. So thank you for being so helpful and for helping us get the books back out to a new audience again, because they've been really, really well received.
And I am always glad to have more readers.
As all authors are, which is totally fair enough. So, I mean, the fact that you are, I'm assuming you are American rather than Canadian. Forgive me if I'm assumed incorrectly.
That is correct. That is correct. I am American. Okay.
So Americans and Thunderbirds don't normally go together, but as you say, you started your Anderson interest around Supercar and Fireball XL5. So when you were watching those as a kid, what was the TV landscape like in the US for you?
Well, Supercar and Fireball XL5 were Saturday morning cartoons. It was a tradition, at least during the 60s and most of the 70s, that Saturday morning was reserved for cartoons for younger viewers. So my brother and I would be in front of the TV watching cartoons from the time we ate breakfast in the morning until lunchtime. And Fireball XL5 was one of the offerings, and also Supercar. Now, when I was in second grade, my teacher put up a bulletin board of the solar system, and I instantly became interested in astronomy. And because of my interest in astronomy, I learned that people actually wrote stories about people going into space. And that made me gravitate more toward television shows such as Fireball XL5, which was set in space and had a rocket ship and wonderful. And then Supercar, which also had, future technology. Wonderful. Exactly what I was interested in.
Fantastic. So I always love it when there's a kind of real life sparks an interest in science fiction, and then it all kind of snowballs, which is awesome. But I have to ask though, Joan, in terms of the style in which these things were produced, if you're watching Saturday morning cartoons, I'm assuming it was going to be kind of Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers type material, that sort of thing, 2D animation, traditional. How did you feel at the time about puppetry?
It was entirely transparent to me how the particular format in which the stories were presented, whether it was animation. I did watch some live, there was some live action programming on Saturday mornings, but it was mostly animation. But having marionettes was perfectly fine. It did not seem, it was telling the same kind of stories, and that's what I was most interested in. I was talking to some other Gerry Anderson fans a while back at a convention, and I was saying that a lot of viewers focus on the marionettes, and that's fine because there was and it was very good work with the marionettes. But my view is that the marionettes made it possible, and the accompanying thing was that this was a good way to do special effects. And it was a way to do special effects that seemed more realistic than animation. So there was an advantage to that sort of storytelling. And I found that very attractive.
Yeah, the real and the tangible has a different effect on a mind. I think particularly a young mind. So you get I don't know, like you said, a more meaningful sense of the real than you do in other formats. But I mean, culturally, puppetry is viewed very differently in the UK than it is in the US. So at the time in the 60s, I'm guessing that it wasn't seen as a problem. But I mean, now, do you think puppetry has a kind of a slightly twee reputation? It's viewed in a sort of rather lowly, naff way in the United States at large?
I am not a part of any discussions on that level, so I really couldn't tell you, because that is not a topic that I normally discuss with other fans of other genres.
One for later discussion then. I mean, we see it all the time, actually. Now, certainly in modern audience, puppetry is held with a bit of reverence in the UK, which I don't see in the US. But clearly it wasn't a problem for you as a kid. Did you have any sense that these shows were not American?
No. Well, I knew on some level that they were produced in the UK because of the credits, which I read. I mean, I was old enough to read credits, and at the end of the thing, there was credits. And so I knew it was produced in the UK because of the credits. But in my reading of the books, I understood that Gerry Anderson made a lot of the characters, at least, American to appeal to American audiences. So the characters, the Thunderbirds family, the Tracys, they're American. Steve Zodiac, I mean, that's how it was presented.
Yeah, but it fitted, and it wasn't jarring for you. Neither the puppets nor any kind of sense of being overly British.
I read a lot of British fiction when I was younger, and of course, I still read a lot of British fiction. So it seems very familiar to me. In fact, when I was writing some essays in my 20s, I was told, that's a British expression and you're American. And I thought, well, that's probably because I read a lot of British literature. And so it seems very natural to me to use British expressions because I read so much British literature that it's very natural for me to use those phrases.
So I'm gonna be listening out for those Britishisms now. So by the time you got to Stingray watching as a kid, I'm guessing you were still watching in black and white for that?
No, I was watching it in color.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so tell me about the experience of transitioning from black and white to color in the worlds of Anderson.
Oh, it was great. My dad was not the first person on the block to get a color TV, but he did go to the neighbor who was the first person on the block to get a color TV and loved it, so he promptly went out and bought one.
Excellent.
And actually, I do remember watching Stingray with my dad because it was broadcast on what was then prime time at 6:30 in the evening on a weeknight after supper. Oh. So it was not only my brother and I watching Stingray, it was also my dad. And found it fascinating. But absolutely, we were watching it in color.
Oh, amazing. So, I mean, Stingray is obviously, it's a science fiction show, but its focus is not in space. So how did it compare for you in terms of interest versus Fable XL5?
Well, again, as with Supercar, although Supercar was, had a couple of space episodes, but was mostly on Earth, it was the advanced technology. It was the science fiction aspect. It was the futuristic aspect of it. So I was still, very taken with it.
So I'm interested then. So you go from Stingray to Thunderbirds. You don't see that many Thunderbirds episodes. And yet, despite seeing much more Supercar, Fireball, and Stingray, you would later go on to write multiple Thunderbirds novels. What was it about Thunderbirds that meant that became the focus of your writing and not any of those earlier shows, which arguably should have had or could have had more impact on you?
The aspect about Thunderbirds, and I read this in the nonfiction books about Thunderbirds, is that it's my understanding that Gerry Anderson and the other scriptwriters, when they were writing the scripts, in Thunderbirds had a particular focus on writing both for an adult audience and for a child audience. And that had, even when I was younger, and Thunderbirds really came out when I was more in the high school age anyway, that kind of maturity in the plots and in the messages of the episodes, I found more appealing and something that I wanted to explore in a greater depth. As I said, when it got on DVD, I watched it multiple times. And the reason why it was still enjoyable after watching it multiple times is that there is a there is still a depth and a subtlety to it, which if you watch the episodes, you can focus on these things and realize this is a much more sophisticated show. This has a lot to say. And that also made me think that Thunderbirds needs more stories. It needs more stories to explore these depths and explore these subtleties, which were in the original episodes.
But never fully explored, partly because of the length of the two series, I guess. So, I mean, it's interesting that it seemed so different to you from the others with the writing on two levels, because a lot of people, particularly in the entertainment industry now, don't see that. They just see it as a kid's show, but it is way more than that.
It is.
I mean, part of that comes from the family dynamic. Part of it comes from the real sense of peril. Are there any other qualities from Thunderbirds and its aims in terms of storytelling that stand out to you?
Again, the science fiction concepts, the technology, how they were trying to portray life in the 21st century where this technology was more sophisticated, and how that technology affected society, which is really the core of science fiction. The core of science fiction is how technology affects society. And even though Thunderbirds was, on one level, was focused on these wonderful adventures that the Tracy family was happening, there was still an element of, we have technology, we have advanced technology. In the first episode, Jeff Tracy says, this technology could be dangerous if it is in the wrong hands, and therefore we must keep it secret and to ourselves. And that, as an overall statement, I felt that was a very important statement. And one that made it mindful of the fact that if you have advanced technology, you want to use it ethically. You want to use it in a way that helps people. You want to use it in a way that brings the conversation and brings society to an even better level and better relationships among humans.
Yeah, a sense of with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah. We will return to Thunderbirds in a bit, but I just wanted to see what happened with your relationship with Gerry Anderson's series after Thunderbirds. When you were watching originally, did you move into the worlds of Captain Scarlet or Joe 90 or even UFO or Space 1999, or was Thunderbirds your jumping off point?
Joe 90, I don't remember that it ever aired here. It may have, and I missed it. I certainly would have watched for it because I'd watched all the other Gerry Anderson shows before then. But I never saw Joe 90, and I never saw Captain Scarlet. It may have been offered in the United States somewhere, but I do not remember it being offered. And I'm sure because I was watching for Gerry Anderson's productions that I would have. Yeah. UFO I definitely saw. UFO I saw all the episodes of. Space 1999 I saw all the episodes of. Although I was in graduate school at the time that Space 99 first aired. And the television reception at the university that I was attending was absolutely terrible. So I could get the sound, but the picture was not very good.
Oh, torture.
So yes. So I did my best. I did tune in, but mostly Space 1999 was something that I didn't catch up on except on vacations, and sometimes it would be rerun here and there. So it was on the first showing, although I was enthusiastic about it and wanted to see it very badly, I didn't get the full effect of the series.
Yeah, that must have been tough, just hearing the tantalizing soundtrack.
Yes, it was very frustrating, but at least I got some of it.
Okay. So, Joan, just in a sort of Jeff Tracy origin story way, could you just give me a short and sweet history of your march from graduate school and watching a bit of Space 1999 through to writing professionally and up to the point of considering doing the Thunderbirds books, and then we'll dive into those quickly too.
Well, I was involved very heavily in the fan fiction community by the 70s when Space 99 was on. And I did write a bit of fan fiction at the time. In 1984, a professional writer saw some of my fan fiction, felt that I was good enough for professional publication, and therefore was able to help me get professionally published. And so I had a number of short stories published starting in 1984. I had a nonfiction book published, Voyager Exploring the Outer Planets, by an educational publisher. As I said, I've had a lifelong interest in astronomy. So I did have publication credits up until then. And for what's called media tie-in work, I think you could definitely count fan fiction as media tie-in work, because what you do is essentially the same. You watch the program, you get a sense of what it's about, you get a sense of the characters, you get a sense of the setting, and then you write a story based on all that. So I was experienced in all that by the time that I thought of getting a license for Thunderbirds. And in fact, I was asked when I applied for the license to show my previous work and my previous credits, and I did. I sent them some books that I had written and gave them a summary of my writing credits. And apparently they read my writing and felt that it was professional enough to do the Thunderbirds books, so I did.
Fantastic. And all that has led to this moment.
All that has led to this moment. I do want to add that three of the Thunderbirds books were nominated for a Scribe Award. Now, the Scribe Award is an award particularly for media tie-in books. And so it was nominated 3 times, and I think it was Extreme Hazard actually won the award. So it was considered excellent by a panel of judges who were experienced in reading and judging media tie-in books. I'm very proud of that.
There you go. Quite right, too. And if that doesn't give you the impetus to go and get a copy of the book, Podsterons, then I don't know what will. But, Joan, I wanted to ask you, when you decide you're going to go and do this thing and you're going to go and get the license, did you have in mind the kind of stories, the kind of set of stories you wanted to tell? And if so, how did you come up with those thoughts? I know, obviously, you said you did a huge amount of research, but that kind of decision has got to be driven a bit by your gut and your feeling for what makes an enjoyable story. So how did you go about that process?
I went about the process by studying the books that I had purchased about Thunderbirds and about the development of the show and about the development of the characters. And I thought, okay, what is it about the characters that can make a story? So for Jeff Tracy, the main thing is that he was the founder of International Rescue. So what was driving him to do that? And then for each of the Tracy sons, again, what is their character? John Tracy, an astronomer and communications expert, would definitely be an expert on GPS and coordinating things and watching out for distress signals. In addition to being an aquanaut, Gordon seems to be there was a hint that he was a weapons expert and that he was very good at it. For Alan, of course, he was the youngest son, and therefore he would be the one that would be trying to find his place in all this and maturing. So I wrote a story about that. Virgil wanted to integrate the fact that he was an artist and a piano player as well as an engineer.
Yep.
And so I got all of those aspects into his books. I deliberately wrote one book about each of the Tracy family because of that, because I felt what readers of Thunderbirds would want to read are character-driven stories that feature the strengths and point out the challenges that each character would uniquely overcome because of his or her, in this case, his personality.
Fantastic. Oh, it makes sense and a really nice way to approach it. Which Tracy brother are you, Joan?
Which Tracy brother am I? I think I am probably Scott because I am the oldest in my family and very willing to take on responsibility and leadership roles. and try to know as much information as possible about everything, put everything together, decision maker, coordinator, that sort of thing. So I guess as far as the Tracy brothers are concerned, I am Scott. My favorite Tracy, however, is Jeff.
Okay. Why so?
Because he was the man with the vision. He was the one that put it all together. He was the one that knew what technology could do, how it could be implemented, and with a passion to implement it in the most ethical way possible. And I think that's important because one of the things that I am discouraged by in more recent novels is that a lot of writers believe that in order to make a compelling dramatic story, that characters must have a significant moral flaw. And I find that discouraging because I think that, we are all imperfect. We all have challenges to overcome. We all make mistakes, and we all do something that, all do things that we are ashamed of later. That does happen to everyone. But I think for me as a writer, I want to write stories that are inspiring, that inspires people to develop their better nature, to tell people that, yes, we are all flawed and imperfect, but we can still do great things. We can still do wonderful things. We can still rise to a higher ethical level. And that's what I wanted to do with the books.
Fantastic. An aim worthy of Jeff Tracy himself in that case, I'd say, trying to inspire the best in others.
Yes, as I said, my favorite Tracy character.
I'm surprised you didn't go for John, though, John. I thought with the astronomy and space side that you might be drawn towards John.
Well, since Jeff Tracy is my favorite character, as a good parent, I love all my sons equally.
That's a great cop-out. Love that.
I definitely loved writing all of the characters and each of the characters, and definitely I enjoyed writing Situation Critical because I got to do astronomy. I definitely put astronomy in there. And in fact, an astronomer who is also a science fiction writer at Kitt Peak National Observatory was one of the people that read through the book and commented on the science in there so that I could make sure that the astronomy in there was good.
Excellent. Well, all good science fiction needs a decent science advisor, I think, because we can't get it all right when you're trying to be creative. There was a seventh book which you worked on with Anthony Taylor. Is that right? Can you tell me about that?
Yes. After I had written the 6 books, my license allowed me to publish a 7th book. And by that time, I had gone through all the characters, and I thought, I'm not sure that I could write another one, or at least within the time frame, because I had, as you had hinted, I had more or less thought of what I was going to do before I started. And so I didn't have a prepossessing idea, so I thought, well, okay, let's have somebody else write it. And Anthony Taylor was someone who I knew all about the characters, who was a big fan of Thunderbirds, and who was a writer. And I thought, okay, let's give it a try. So contracted with him. He produced a novel. We published it. And so I was able to publish a 7th novel before the license ran out.
Fantastic. So that one's even harder to come by than the rest of your novels now. But who knows, in the future there might be a way of getting a second run done. Maybe. Something we should chat about off air. So were there any stories, the benefit of hindsight and, getting on for 10 years since those first 6, any that you wish you had been able to tell, or that that thing where somebody says something really smart at you and you can't think of a reply, and then, days or months later you think, oh, I should have said that. Were there any stories that you wish you could have told?
I know exactly what you mean, but I think that's probably not the case. As I said, the reason that I contracted with Anthony Taylor to do it was that I pretty much ran out of ideas. And I felt that I was in danger of going back and sort of telling the same story over and over again. And I knew that the readers would not be thrilled if I did that. So I needed really needed to have something fresh, and that's why I contracted with Anthony Taylor, because I needed a fresh idea for a story. But I guess if I had the opportunity to write it again, I could probably come up with something. But no, I haven't had that moment where I thought, oh, gee, I wish I had the license again, because there's a story I'm just anxious to tell.
Well, that's quite a nice position to be in then, if you're not desperate to get something out there. Well, let me go from another direction then. If one of those stories was turned into a Thunderbirds episode, which one would you have liked to have seen? Which one would fit best in your view within the original 32 if this was a 33?
Deadly Danger.
Oh, no hesitation.
No hesitation.
Why Deadly Danger?
That is my favorite of the novels. Deadly Danger really has everything that I wanted to put in a Thunderbirds novel. It has action, it has adventures, it has thrills, it has a challenge, it has an antagonist that is really, really tough. And they really, really have to put out all of their effort in order to meet that challenge. So Deadly Danger is the favorite one that I wrote. Perfect.
So there you go. That's possibly a good one to get started on then, Podsterons, if you are listening and considering picking out one of the books. And Joan, you never considered doing, well, you said you run dry or completed your mission for the Thunderbirds series. You never considered looking at any other Anderson titles, or are you happy that you've created your bit of canon content and drawn a line under it, and now it's other projects?
Well, it was suggested to me that I write tie-in novels based on Supercar. And I did love Supercar, and I think that I could write some stories about that. However, getting a license is although it's a wonderful thing to do, it's also very time and effort intensive.
Absolutely.
And so if somebody else had a Supercar license and wanted an author for it, I would definitely volunteer, because I enjoyed it, and I think that I could write some more stories for that.
Fantastic. Well, you put that out into the world now, so maybe that'll come back to you at some point. Joan, you are, well, I was going to say one of few, but one of many, I guess, globally who have started in fan fiction and moved into the world of professional fiction. You know, I'm not assigning a value judgment on either side of that, but there's a lot of fan fiction writers who aspire to be professionally published. Do you have any tips for fan fiction writers to develop their writing and how to make that move towards professional publication should they wish to do so?
Yes, one of the things that helped me move from fan fiction writing to professional writing is that in my fan fiction writing, I put a lot of myself in it, so that the term that we formed to describe this is Mary Sue, your projection into the story. And so I wrote my earliest fan writing, and the earliest fan writing of many, many fan fiction writers, is the Mary Sue story. Now, I have read tons of Mary Sue stories, and as any kind of story, there are good ones and bad ones. The good ones are very, very good. The bad ones are very, very bad. But that's the way with all writing. You know, the good stuff is good, the bad stuff is bad. So how I made the transition is when I could formulate a story without putting myself into the story so blatantly. I know one writer, I think it was James Gunn, said that when asked about the characters in his stories and who they were based on, he said they are all me. And I've thought about that. And I think what I did to make the transition from fan writer to pro writer is that instead of putting myself as a character in the story, to develop characters where I could identify with some part of their personality without their entire personality being a reflection of me. And I think that that's when I started writing better stories, because I could write characters that were very different from me, but I could write the character because there was some aspect in the character's personality that I could either understand or identify with. And I think that kind of skill is something that a fan fiction writer can develop in order to make the transition from fan writing to pro writing.
That is a great golden nugget of a tip. So thank you for sharing that. Joe, what are you working on right now, if you're allowed to disclose anything?
I am allowed to disclose everything. I wrote last year a haunted house story about a character who takes on a challenge of an owner of a haunted house who has publicized the fact that he wants the house to go to someone else, doesn't want the house. And it's haunted, so nobody wants it. So he says, if you can go into the haunted house and stay overnight, you'll get the haunted house. And so she takes up the challenge and finds that it's a very large challenge indeed, which is why no one had ever claimed it before. So this haunted house story, I belong to a critique group, as many writers do, and they're very good at finding inconsistencies in my writing, and it's a very good thing because it makes the writing better. And they have said that this is probably the best writing I have ever produced. So I've decided to publish it myself. I've sent it to a couple of traditional publishers who weren't really interested in it, but I decided that at this point I would publish it myself because I'm 66 years old. And for life expectancy, I have 20 years left to get to the average life expectancy. So I think that, if I were younger, I might go through the progression of going through all the publishers until I could find one that did. But at my age, I think that I will publish it myself so that I can see it published and get some reaction to it. So right now, I am doing this. I am starting on the steps that it takes to self-publish a novel. I am working on a cover. I have sent it off to a freelance editor to edit it. I have sent it off to a professional copywriter to write the publicity blurbs and things. So that is what I am doing at the moment.
Fantastic. Just before we wrap up, I was going to say, has your love of any of the Anderson shows directly or maybe even indirectly influenced your writing style, your storytelling style, and the type of stories that you like to tell?
I think it's probably the reverse, that the Anderson series reflect the stories that I want to tell, and that's what attracted me to them. The kind of stories that I want. As I mentioned before when talking about Jeff Tracy and his saying that he wants to use technology in the most ethical manner possible, that's the kind of story I want to tell. And that's the kind of story that Thunderbirds was doing. And that's what attracted me to it. So it was more of the reverse.
Okay. So just a natural fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Joan, if our listeners want to find you online, on social media or your website, where can they find you? JoanMarieVerba.com. And on Twitter, I'm Joan Marie Verba. Easy. Couldn't be simpler. Joan, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Really appreciate it. And I would implore listeners to go and grab copies of Joan's books from the Gerry Anderson store while they still can.
And thanks so much for talking to me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Likewise, Joan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. Now, I think that's particularly interesting from the point of view of people who want to cross over from fan fiction into publication or just want to develop their fan fiction. There's some lovely tips at the end from Joan. So thank you, Joan.
Great.
Do go and follow her on Twitter and pop to her website. But I did think that was really interesting that when I said, in the last 10 years, have you thought of any more stories you wish you could have told? She said no.
Yeah.
Because for me, if you're kind of that passionate about a show, I always feel like you'd always be imagining scenarios and stuff. And maybe that's just me. I mean, great for her, really, to have kind of got those 6 stories down and gone, right, that's it. I've done everything I wanted to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
What a lovely feeling.
I told the stories I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I mean, with the characters that you create, Richard, for sort of Bowman of the Yard, I mean, do you think you'll get to a point where you think, right, I'm done now. I'm never going to think about this character again because I've created all the stories I want to?
Last November, yeah. I don't know. I come and go with it. Sometimes, I'm writing the last book at the moment, and sometimes I'm thinking, yeah, this will be the last book. But then suddenly you just get a little seed of an idea, or what if, and you sort of put it to the back of your mind for another day. There are always stories to be told.
Absolutely.
But perhaps not.
Not
you don't always
ones.
have the inclination to,
Yeah, no, I think Joan's actually quite sensible to have that feeling like it's, case closed, done their rescues. I've told a story about each of the boys and Jeff. We're done.
That's right.
Anyway,
Did the job.
Most of those books are still available from the Gerry Anderson store, although they are in increasingly short supply. Is that a term I can use?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, good.
It sounds quite nice, increasingly short supply. Gosh. Anyway, sorry. Yes, you can get them now. Just go and search Thunderbirds paperback, I believe, on the store is the best way to see all of the ones that are still available. Go and grab those before they run out, because there are very limited numbers left and they'll be gone fairly soon.
Now that's the way it goes.
So thank you, Joan. Now, next week, Richard, we're going from one female author to another female author, would you believe?
Oh, good.
Isn't that nice? So next week, it is author of The Joshua Files and, more importantly, Gerry Anderson's Gemini Force One.
Oh, lovely.
M.G. Harris.
Great.
She'll be here talking about how we turned a Gerry Anderson nascent idea, where there were two kind of opening story ideas and a bunch of notes, into 3 full novels. Gemini Force One, Black Horizon, Ghost Mine and White Storm, how we brought them together, how she was influenced by Anderson stuff and other sci-fi in all of her work, and how much of a nerd she really is. So you can look forward to hearing that next week in Pod 109.
Gemini Force One, of course, been given new life, courtesy of Big Finish and the Gerry Anderson Entertainment, and Jacob Dudman.
Absolutely.
With a new audio release,
Yes, so if you want to hear that, then you can go to the Gerry Anderson store, bigfinish.com, and pick up Gemini Force One, Black Horizon, and enjoy immersing yourself in a brand new, well, if you haven't heard it before, a brand new Gerry Anderson world that's more contemporary, kind of has a Thunderbirdsy vibe. Yeah, it's a really great listen, and Jake's done a fantastic job.
He has. But everything's brand new if you haven't heard it before, surely. Anyway, you're listening.
All right, you pedant. All right.
Now, don't forget, this is really important. If you do nothing else today, subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Leave us a nice rating. Share us with your friends so they can hear us too. It's that simple. Now, I'm heading over to Twitter because a few people have been commenting on Twitter and hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast. Tone, for example, said, finally listening to this week's Gerry Anderson podcast, I think I watched the episode of The Protectors that featured in Chris Dale's Randomiser just the other week. Was randomly on Forces TV, I think. Oh, so you were ahead of the game a bit there. The wonderfully monikered Satan's Moustache says, it's only 20 years until we're living in the Space Precinct universe, which is a thought, isn't it? That's if you subscribe to the idea that 2040 is the year in which it's set and not the badge number. And finally, N. Smith says, Jamie, you certainly held your own against Matthew Sweet.
Bless you.
Did they edit your dog out on BBC Radio 3's Sound of Cinema? I really enjoyed it, but you didn't say there'd be tears at the end.
Well, I didn't want to warn about that.
Warning,
I said there was something. Yeah, it's interesting because Mum listened to it and she rang me. Or I rang her and disrupted her listening. She was about 50 minutes through, and Matthew had just been going through tweets and various bits of stuff, and she rang me and she was laughing at various tweets, and I said, "Oh, when you go back to it, your laughter might change slightly to something else."
Yes.
So I gave her a fair warning. But yes, it was I was just so pleased that they let us include that.
Yeah,
it was a really nice addition. And thank you for being so kind, saying I held my own against Matthew Sweet. I'm not sure that's the case, but I really appreciate you saying so. And yes, heavy editing to remove the dog's shaking and collar and scratching and annoying stuff. I think I only heard 2 little collar tinkles throughout, so well done to the editor there.
Good. Great. And actually, finally, Jeff Owen says, as people still have a lot of time on their hands, is there any chance of some Gerry Anderson jigsaws? And also he adds, he really enjoyed the David Tremont 3-part interview on the podcast, but it made him wonder if you have any plans for making omnibuses of multi-part interviews available.
Well, how strange that this should come up. Both these things should come up when both of those things are already in discussion or underway.
Are they now?
Yes, now clever Tim, who keeps the Gerry Anderson store running and keeps all of our lovely customers very happy, is doing some rather marvellous work, stopping me being a bottleneck, essentially, and making stuff happen, and that includes the Christmas jumper that's gone into production.
Great.
I believe that he is working on a rather lovely Gerry Anderson jigsaw right now. And that's an exclusive. Well, other than the fact that I think I may have mentioned that to Jeff on Twitter.
Okay.
And in terms of interviews, yes, I think we probably should squish together the interviews and put them out as sort of as one pieces, so to speak.
Yeah.
And there's been so many interesting ones. I don't quite know how we're going to do it, or when, or why, or what it'll be entitled. But I think it's a great idea, something that we've been discussing for a while. And watch this space or listen to it.
Very good. Great.
Now, Richard James. I don't know if we mentioned it, but I think today is a very special day.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it payday?
It's no, you just missed that. But it's a celebration of your half haircut, obviously.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And it's a Monday, which everyone loves a Monday, don't they? But most importantly,
what's not to like?
It's the 35th birthday of the rather marvellous Randomiser General himself, Christopher Columbus Dale. Now, that's not his middle name. Chris, what is your middle name? But it really should be. Chris, who has served this podcast and Gerry Anderson fandom extremely well, given us some glorious stuff over the last, certainly a couple of years on the podcast, but way beyond that with his fantastic Captain Scarlet gag edits and stuff on YouTube and all sorts of other stuff. It's Chris's birthday, so happy birthday, Chris. So let's hope he gets something really special for his birthday randomiser. Here it is.
Oh, hello. You're up bright and early.
Yes, well, thought I'd make a start on the day. Any post, was there, perchance?
Sandwiches?
No, post, as in, letters?
Letters?
Yes.
No.
Huh.
What's the matter? Wait a minute. I've just remembered. It's your birthday.
Oh, well, I wasn't going to say anything, but since you mentioned it...
Oh, I'm sorry. And I haven't even got a card. I forgot all about it.
Oh, fine.
Now go and get dressed and I'll get you breakfast.
No, I think it's probably going to be a stay in your jammies kind of day. Oh, hello everyone. Well, yes, as you probably heard, it's my birthday today. I'm 35 years old, and obviously with things being the way they are at the moment, any plans I might have had for it, having a clip show or a weird dream or something, have rather gone out the window. Still, it would have been nice to see at least one friend today. I suppose ideally it would have to have been someone who isn't human, to minimise the risk, but also someone who really embodies the spirit of the number 35. Oh, but where in the Gerry Anderson universe could I possibly find someone like that?
035, reporting for birthday duties, sir.
35? How absolutely wonderful to see you again.
Oh, and you, sir.
But what are you doing here?
Well, I thought since you're partly responsible for me existing in the first place, it would be frightfully bad form to miss your 35th May Day. Oh, you didn't have any other plans, did you?
Oh, no, look, I'm going to hug you, if that's all right.
Of course. And if I had arms, I would hug you back. Oh.
Sorry, it's just, I haven't seen you in about 3 years. Not since the last series of the Terrorhawks audio plays and that very sad ending when it looked like Mary Falconer had been killed.
Oh, that was ages ago. Then you don't know what happened afterwards?
No idea. We never heard any more after that.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, so all that was just the start of it. Because, you see, Mary, Captain Faulkner, she wasn't really dead.
You're kidding.
I'm not, honest. Of course, all of us thought she was dead, and it was terribly sad. But in fact, she was actually transmatted out to safety. But then that turned out to be a trap within a trap, because then... Oh, and this is the real twist. You'll never guess who the dastardly mastermind behind the whole entire scheme was.
You're going to have to tell me.
None other than... Oh, cripes, it's giving me the chills just thinking about it. It was time...
35, as much as I'd love to carry on chatting about old times... And we absolutely will once we've finished recording here.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes, we probably should get on and make this week's selection on the randomiser.
The who on the what? Oh, yes, Zero was telling me about this. Well, let's give it a whirl.
How'd you do that without even touching it?
Utronic wireless connection, of course. Well, she's a computer. I'm basically a computer.
She? The randomiser's a she?
Well, of course. All the best computers are these days,
Well, if you're any example, I can absolutely believe it.
Gosh. Ooh, I think we have our selection. Oh, this is so exciting. So today's episode is from Fireball XL5.
Good.
And it's Convict in Space.
Oh, fantastic. One of my favourites. I had that one on video as a kid.
Well then, what could be more appropriate for your special day?
Absolutely. I can't think of anything better. Right, well, here's Convict in Space.
Hoorah!
But before we get to that 35er, just between you, me and the listeners, any more little teases or juicy gossip about what happened after the Terrorhawk Series 3 finale?
Oh, so much has happened since then. Let's see. Well, once we got Mary home safe and well, that was when Lord Tempo brought back the dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs? Really?
Yes, you know, the properly big scary ones with sharp teeth stepping on things and going grrr.
Wow.
But don't worry, we soon sorted that out.
Well, that's a relief.
Of course, that's when Sister got elected president. And after that, things started to get really silly.
So, a birthday treat for me with a return to Fireball XL5 and an episode I remember very fondly from my childhood, Convict in Space, starting with this lovely pan across Space City. And at this point, the bases in the Gerry Anderson shows don't quite look as impressive as they would later on. This is a sort of mishmash of, random installations and buildings and silos and rocket towers kind of all over the place, but it looks very impressive. It looks very big as well. Anyway, someone's sneaking around in some kind of security vault. Got a great big, massive torch to light the way.
At last, these plans will command a high price anywhere in the universe.
And one of my favourite XL5 villains.
We'll soon cut through this Earthmate safe. Then the plans will be mine.
Now I've reminded myself what I'm here to do, I'll get on and do it. Yes, Growth and Deblis.
Secret plans stolen from United States base, believed to have been transported into outer space. Spaceship is type...
Are you for real, Guy?
Transported in Sector 25.
Oh, of course. Sector 25.
Oh,
yeah.
Patrol vessel will be notified.
Yeah, this was an episode on, as I've mentioned before, as a kid, I had 2 VHS volumes of Fireball XL5.
Alert him, Lieutenant.
Volume 4 and Volume 6. This was on Volume 4, which I got one Christmas, and I watched that tape to death. And this was probably my favourite... this wasn't my favourite episode on the tape. Last of the Xanadus was my favourite episode on that tape. This was the second favourite.
This is the work of Growth and Deblis again, Steve.
Investigate any spaceship type 37H.
Roger, Commander. So Deblis is up to his old tricks again, huh? Now, don't worry, we'll catch up with him.
Yeah, I watched that tape to death, and it's one of those bits of merchandise I really regret getting rid of because it was just such a hugely nostalgic thing for me, even if I didn't have a VHS player to play it on now, which I don't. I would still love to get my hands on a copy just for old time's sake.
7H rocket in that group.
One of the best Christmas presents I ever got, this tape.
A spaceship type 37H. I found him. But it's not coming from the direction of Earth.
Oh, so we're on the trail of Deblis already.
The course of the ship had me guessing. But now I've got it figured. Deblis is made to stop somewhere between here and Earth. Why do you suppose that was, Steve?
I don't know, Matt. But give me the course and we'll find out.
Venus is here as well. She looks like she's about to fall asleep on her feet. Ah, poor old Venus. And I also love how a lot of the spaceships in this series look like planes. I don't know if that was a conscious decision or they're just sort of
world space
kit-bashing old airplane model kits.
Oh, they will detect me soon. But the plans are safe. They will never find them.
I really like Growth and Deblis because he's got a really sort of...
He spotted us, Steve.
I want to say scary face. That's not quite... His face isn't quite scary, but there is a sinisterness kind of built into it.
On those patrol ships, they're too powerful.
Like the irises are slanted. The face is very jowly. He looks very sinister, and yet he wears a dress. Because, real sinister space criminals wear dresses. That's the kind of future we live in is it 2065 this is set?
G0, 10 degrees, so...
Or 2062.
Fire missile.
Fire missile.
Fire nipples? That's what he said.
Oh, that's it. Deblis is hit.
Blast missile effective.
And of course, he's on fire in space.
Patrol to Growth and Deblis. If you want to live, you'd better eject.
Your ship's about to blow up.
You win, Steve Zodiac. This time.
Oh, shaking the clenched fist at him. Steve is also assuming that Deblis has oxygen pills to survive in space. He's very casual, just sort of, yeah, eject into space, it's fine, we'll pick you up.
Any minute now.
Get ready. Oh, 1 boom. 2 boom. 3 boom. Oh, a boom so big Steve has to cover his eyes to shield them from the glare.
It is 3 months since Colonel Steve Zodiac captured the dangerous spy Growth and Deblis.
And just like that, we have a time jump.
Deblis was found guilty of universal robbery and was sentenced to 20 years
Universal
on the prison
robbery.
planet of Conva, better known as the Space Pen.
The Space Pen, yeah. And this episode...
You'll never get me to the Space Pen, Zodiac. Never!
This episode was aired after Space Pen, quite a while after. I believe it was made after Space Pen as well. And yet it appeared before Space Pen on the old tape that I had. So there we go, bit of an interesting factoid there for you. I also like the reporter's bow tie there, and I've never been entirely sure if that's the same reporter who turns up again in
So Colonel Steve.
Oh, there he is.
And the valiant crew of Fireball XL5 right.
This is the same guy who turns up again in Stingray.
As Growth and Deblis is transported to Conva. But one mystery must, it seems, remain. What happened to the top-secret plans Deblis stole? Are they still in space on some remote planet? Did Deblis destroy them?
And do you like my bow tie? I do. It's a very, very fine bow tie. Anyway, here are, once again...
We are going to rescue Growth and Deblis from Zodiac's ship.
Boris and Griselda, Mr. and Mrs. Space Spy, who we've previously heard here in Space Pen.
Just when he thinks he will share in the profits, that's when we'll double-cross him.
Back on the old SS Thor, which was destroyed at the end of Space Pen, so it would make sense for that episode to be...
How's the prisoner, Venus?
After this one, but all signs indicate it isn't. XL5 Space Jail, because everything has to have the word space on the front in Fireball XL5 world. Oh, there's Deblis in his cell.
Say, that's an emergency red. Hey, Matt, check for a spaceship in difficulties.
Roger, Steve.
Oh, there's the old Thor disguising its markings again. How many times is it that the XL5 crew have fallen for this ploy?
I go over to speech transmission now. Griselda, my love?
Yes, Boris. We want them here. And with our rocket disguised, Zodiac will suspect nothing.
I love these two. I love that you have a married couple of villains, which you didn't really get in other series. Well, aside from Master Spy and Zarin, obviously.
You're not too far away from us, Steve.
Maybe not, Matt, but we've got a dangerous prisoner to deliver to Conva.
Are there no other spaceships in the area?
Yeah, no, Steve. XL5 is the only one.
Oh, there you go. There's the old Star Trek trope. The Enterprise is the only ship in range.
Okay, Matt, you're right.
Once again, Anderson beat them to it.
We are answering your call. Stand by.
Be with you as fast as we can.
Yeah, but even so, you'd think by now they would recognise the voices.
Matt, you'd better go across and take a look.
And even though the Thor is disguised, they've seen it in that disguise before and they've fallen for it several times. But hey-ho. I'll assume they've fallen for it because of the random order of the episodes rather than the fact that the XL5 crew are generally ninnies.
Ready to eject.
Okay, Matt. Report back what the trouble is.
Matt's going to head on over and see what's wrong with the...
XL5 to CX-29.
Mystery ship.
Zermatic, our navigator and engineer, cross now.
Prepare to receive him.
Whatever you do, don't sneak up behind him and hit him on the head with your gun. We do this a lot, and everybody... Oh, he's going to do it. Boris has got the pistol up, ready to smack him. And it isn't just Boris and Griselda who keep doing this to the XL5 crew. This seemed to happen to them a lot. And that's it. Matt is down. Boris and Griselda had the door wide open to space. I love the physics in this show. It's like, you can just open the door to space. You're not even going to get a little bit cold.
Zodiac, this is Boris. You remember? The space spy. I want you to listen carefully to me.
That's coming from the other ship, Venus. And Matt is aboard her. We've been tricked.
Oh, No, not again.
Will remain so until you release Grodan Deadbliss. That is our deal, Zodiac. What do you say?
Why, you low-down space snake.
But Steve, the professor, he's in dead...
Oh, if you're going to call me a low-down space snake, I surrender immediately, Steve Zodiac.
A thruster pack, and we want no tricks, Zodiac, or the professor will suffer.
That's it, Deadbliss is, he's going to be released. He's showing us his crotch there.
You win this round. We're exchanging you for the professor.
Save your breath, Zodiac. I heard Boris over the radio. You are well equipped on XL5.
Venus, why do we pipe our interspaceship communications down to the cells?
I'm gonna make sure there are no tricks.
That would seem another fairly drastic security breach on this ship, but there we go. This ship was founded on the principle of,
And remember, one false move, and the professor is done for. I told you would never get me to the prison planet.
Oh, I love that shot of him shaking his fist as the doors to XL5 cockpit close.
The mechanism that controls this door.
He's just going to break everything.
Sounds as though Deadbliss is smashing Matt's equipment in the navigation bay.
He's got a pickaxe from somewhere.
Machinery together.
Oh, I love this guy. He just looks and sounds so evil.
Undetected.
Oh, he's not wearing a dress as such. He's got a sort of cape thing that kind of hangs down low enough to be a dress.
Deadbliss is really evil, and with Boris and Griselda to help, he could cook up something real bad.
I don't like it, Venus. He's really mean, and he's breaking our stuff.
Can get that door open.
Yeah, you could always ask Robert to open the door. You do have a super strong robot right there. No? Okay. Well, Deadbliss has abandoned ship.
About to enter the other ship, Steve.
We've got to work fast. Hey, Robert could do this. Why didn't I think of that before? Robert, open door.
Who's Robert, Steve? Oh, the robot.
Hurry, Robert.
Open the door, open the door, open the door.
Brain the size of a planet and the house mirror, open the door.
We'll go to collect the seat.
Poor Robert. I think he's the only competent member of the XL5 crew at this point.
It was a good plan of yours to keep the professor as a hostage.
Yeah. I have other plans.
It's such a shame, I think, that Deadbliss never returned again.
Tackle Grodan Deadbliss.
Just everything about this character works so well.
Let's get to those secret plans.
I love when David Graham's got a really nasty voice, a really nasty character to play. And it's nice as well to see Boris and Griselda team up with someone as well. I know they were in league with the those wise guys who'd taken over their space pen last time, but this is something a bit different.
Deadbliss sure made a mess of these navigation instruments. We better get started fixing things or we'll never track them down.
How are you going to fix... I'm assuming you have spare parts for everything on board. Why would you?
That's planet Voldander ahead. Get into orbit, Boris.
But we have to land the entire rocket, Deadbliss.
But Voldander, isn't that the planet of volcanoes?
Oh, probably. Yeah, everything in XL5 is... all the planets are named after their defining attribute. Yeah, another lovely slow pan across the surface of Voldander. And a particularly massive volcano that looks about ready to blow. Yeah, it does seem strange that they would destroy the SS Thor in Space Pen and then have it return immediately. And,
This is taking even longer than I figured.
You're doing your best, Steve. No one can ask more.
I could ask you to help Venus rather than just stand there making asinine comments, but, you know, you do you.
Get the plans and take care of Professor Malik.
And what do we do, Grodan?
You'll stay right here and wait for me. You understand?
It's kind of almost unnecessary to have the space spies in this because...
The volcano, it is going to erupt.
They're quite fun characters on their own anyway. Teaming them up with Deadbliss, he's such a stronger character and far more evil.
It's perfect. A good way of disposing of the professor.
You don't really need to team them up like this. It would have been fine to have Deadbliss on his own.
Volcano's path.
Yep, he's going to lock Matt in a tower right next to the volcano.
Just a few more neutronic electrovogels to connect, Venus.
Oh, do hurry, Steve.
Yeah, again, want to help? No? Okay. Oh, dear. Venus, what are you? Why did we bring you along?
Now, the volcano is about to erupt. Soon it will be no more. And neither will you, Professor. Don't worry about company. I'm gonna leave Boris and Griselda on the planet so you won't die alone.
Ah, that's it. Double crosser. He's got his secret plans out of the tower, locked Matt inside. He's got it all figured out. Oh, this is some really nice effects work as well. Meanwhile, Boris is going to pieces.
We are doomed!
Stop crying, you weakling.
Oh. I mean, the strings are really visible.
Venus, now let's hope we can track them before it's too late.
But the puppet is shaking and wiping his eyes as if he's really crying.
Think I'd hand over the plans, did you? But we made a deal, Dibbles. We rescued you for a half share. Fools! You're gonna stay here. No one makes deals with Growth and Deblis.
Why did you not come back, Growth and Deblis?
He can't do this to us. Stop him.
But how, my love? He has a ray gun.
Maybe we should have thought to bring a ray gun, my love. I also love that he keeps calling her my love, and he seems genuinely affectionate towards her, even though she treats him like utter garbage. And I think we all know a relationship like that. Oh, that's it. The volcano is spewing out lots of, nasty hot lava here. Boris and Griselda are forced to take cover behind some rocks. Deblis has taken the SS Thor.
I've got it. They set course for Voldanda.
The planet of volcanoes. My guess is that Deblis plans to leave Matt there.
You could be right. We'll set course for there.
By going there, we might find out why he went there and thus find a way to stop him. Oh, that's really good thinking, Steve. I know I say these characters are dim. I feel I'm not giving them enough credit. I feel more like their thinking just operates on a completely different level to any other human being. It's wonderful. Oh, perhaps if we go to the place, we will find out about the place.
Steve, be careful down there.
That's it. Disconnecting Fireball Jr. down to the planet. They've left Venus alone on the main body of XL5, so that'll probably be crashing 5 minutes tops. And these lava effects are really good. This tide of lava slowly advancing on the tower. Things in its path are catching fire, like a little tree there. And meanwhile, there's all sorts of explosive bits spewing out of the top of it.
It's Zodiac! He has come to save us!
Hooray!
About time.
Oh, she's so ungrateful. I love her. Yeah, the effects on this are really good. Bits of the side of the volcano are exploding. The area around the flow of the lava is exploding.
Where's Professor Maddox? Quick! Talk if you want to get off this planet alive.
And I would have to say this is... Oh, wow, that was a spectacular shot there. I don't know how well this would hold up in HD, but for... I was going to say for XL5 this is really good, and that's not fair because most of the effects in XL5 are pretty good anyway. Most other shows of the time would kill for effects like this. But compared to the later, Thunderbirds, Scala, the hugely impressive Derek Medding stuff, this is comparatively early days, and yet it really works. You could... Oh, gorgeous scene of XL5, Fireball Jr. approaching the tower.
Zodiac to Maddox. I'm going to fire you.
Explosive thunderbolts coming out of the volcano, and it looks really impressive. Anyway, Steve is now going to fire out a line straight into the tower. Oh, and I love that shot, and I noticed that even as a kid.
Around those balls.
There's a shot looking down on Fireball Jr., and a smoke ring passes over the top of it, almost like a Mysteron ring. It's just the one though, but it's rather cool. Oh, and the tower is starting to buckle.
Take it away!
We're in proper Thunderbirds territory here, I think, with this. It's actual rescue time, which is
Robert, keep Fireball Jr. on.
Quite rare for this show, and even rarer to have a rescue that was so special effects heavy like this. It's fantastic stuff.
Gotta work fast. That tower will collapse at any minute.
I'm not entirely sure where he's left Boris and Griselda at this point.
Jump on the jetmobile, Matt, and hurry!
I mean, I would hope he hasn't left them unattended on Fireball Jr., but this is Steve Zodiac, so who knows? Oh, that's it. Steve's rescued Matt. Heading back to Fireball Jr. And the tower is tottering. The tower is tottering. Gorgeous shot of Fireball Jr. pulling away from the tower just as it buckles at the bottom. Tips over and, of course, kaboom! I'm not sure what was in the tower to make it explode, but luckily the Professor was not.
Professor, it's all yours. Let me know when you've tracked our space spy.
Oh, they really have taken Boris and Griselda up to the flight deck. You have a space jail, guys.
I've sighted him, Steve.
I know for some reason it's tied into your communication system, but lock them up, for goodness sake.
Fireball XL5 to SS Thor. If you're not on board XL5 in 5 minutes from now, we fire.
Curse you, Steve Zodiac, and all of the World Space Patrol. One day I'll get even with you.
Yeah, Deblis' defining characteristic, aside from looking really evil, is clenching his fist, shaking it.
They won't get away with this.
Won't get away with this.
Oh, Deblis has a new partner in the cell.
In a space pen.
Why don't you shut up?
Shut up in a space pen.
Oh.
Shut up in a space pen.
And with the rather unusual last line of "shut up me in the space pen," we leave Convict in space, and that was very odd that they put Robert in the cell with Deblis to guard him. He's pointing the gun at his face like point blank range, and Deblis could easily just reach out and take it. You could probably just say, "Give me your gun," and he'd be, "Oh yeah, I'll give you the gun." Anyway, that was Convict in Space, which I haven't seen for ages, and I really enjoyed coming back to this one after so long. Like I said, I watched this one to death as a kid, and I think it still holds up really well. Not all episodes of XL5 do, but this one, yeah, I think this one can really hold its own against a lot of the stuff that came later. The effects stuff on the planet at the end is just amazing. Lovely to see Boris and Griselda again. Growth and Deblis is a really nasty character, even though he ultimately doesn't really accomplish anything. It would have been really nice to see him come back again, but yeah, a real slice of my own personal childhood nostalgia there, which definitely did not let me down.
Well, what a double birthday treat for Chris Dale there, because not only was it one of his favourite childhood nostalgia episodes of Fireball XL5, Convict in Space, but he also got a very special visit from Zeroid 35. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, lucky Chris. Yes.
Yeah, well, and also
really
lucky
nice.
Podsterons who know Terrorhawks, because they actually got some real insight into what might have come or might still come, you never know, for a series 4 of the audio dramas. One of the things, at least, that he said in there, well, actually more than one of the things he said in there, were actually things that we have penned. So I won't say any more. But yes, bless Beth Chalmers for coming in to voice 035 for Chris there. Lovely to hear her 035 again. Her lovely jolly hockey sticks character.
Yeah.
And yeah, a nice bit of XL5 too.
Yeah, a lovely birthday treat. Well done, Chris, and happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Chris.
Happy birthday, Chris.
Don't forget, Podsterons, go onto Twitter and tweet Happy Birthday, Chris. Tag him at Chris Dalek and use the hashtag Happy Birthday, Chris Dale, and I will pick one of you at random at the end of this week to win a lovely print of a bit of Bob Bell artwork. It's really rather nice.
I bet it
and
is.
just so you know, if you're listening to this after, or significantly after release, I will be picking a winner on the 12th of July.
Okay.
So if it's after that, then you can still tweet Happy Birthday, but you will definitely not be picked at random.
Fair enough.
There you go.
Now, just a couple more things I spotted on our YouTube channel. Yes, for example, Andy Scott got in touch to say that question that Richard asked 56 minutes into the last podcast, that question was, have you ever been surprised by a Gerry Anderson series that you thought you knew, but then you've discovered actually you didn't know it at all and now it's your favourite? Well, Andy says, I feel that way about Four Feather Falls.
Really? That
nice,
is
isn't it?
unusual.
Yeah. And the Cham Cham of IMDb posted, can anyone help me with a Thunderbirds question? I need the name of the episode where Virgil is sitting by the pool in tennis whites and sunglasses. Thanks. Any ideas?
I haven't got a clue. That needs to go to our Podsterons or to at Chris Dalek. Hashtag Happy Birthday, Chris Dale.
There we are. So yes, a number of ways to get in touch on our Facebook page, via Twitter, email us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, or even pop a little comment below one of the videos on YouTube, and we'll see them there.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Podsterons, for helping with our crowdsourcing efforts. Right, Richard, I think we've got to the end of this special Chris Dale birthday edition of the Gerry Anderson podcast, don't you think?
Oh, I should imagine so, yeah.
Yeah. And Chris, whatever you're doing today, have a fantastic day. Hope you get lots of birthday wishes and all your dreams come true, as if they haven't already, being part of the Gerry Anderson podcast. Ha!
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll be back next week with Pod 109 with MG Harris, and obviously me and Richard and Chris, and probably some other stuff too. You think, Richard, maybe? Other stuff?
I should imagine so. Probably. Yeah.
Until then, please do leave us a revrating.
Hey!
Because we need those more than ever. Just for our own egos, really. No, because they massively help other people find us, and more Podsterons join the fantastic group that we've got. Because we do love our listeners, don't we, Richard?
Oh, we do.
Yes,
with a passion.
Please do. All right, steady.
Sorry, well, some of them.
Please do email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, get in touch via the Facebook group and all that sort of stuff. Make sure you're subscribed, rate, review, and we'll be back next week with Pod 109.
Hooray!
Goodbye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
What sort of cake do you think Chris Dale has had? Because
there's a thought.
In Terrorhawks, I remember an episode where there was a Zeroid cake.
Oh, really? How would you stop that rolling off the plate?
Well, it had a flat bottom, didn't it? You all know how those stop you rolling around. But it was really nicely decorated, and I always remember watching it and thinking, I wonder what that tastes like. A bit weird. So, Chris, I hope you had a Zeroid cake or similar for your birthday.
Yeah. Thunderbird 2, maybe?
Thunderbird 2 cake, yeah, possibly. What cake would you have, Richard James?
Oh,
Orin's head?
Cake. Oh, no, that would be weird, wouldn't it?
Cutting into your own head.
Oh, I tell you what I'd like.
Go on.
The Space Police shield emblem. In cake form.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good choice.
And what about you?
Well, I mean, I just kind of want to stick with the Zeroid cake, really, but it would have to be a sphere rather than just a standard cake made to look like a Zeroid on one side.
Bit picky, aren't you?
No, I'm not picky. Or, if I wanted to go really crazy, I would have a Paradox from Lavender Castle. So a thatched cottage spaceship cake. Wouldn't that be incredible?
Okay. Right. Let's make that happen.
Okay. Well, Podsterons, if you're still listening to this point, then... what are you thinking? But do email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, with your chosen Gerry Anderson birthday cake. And who knows, if you also include your birthday date...
And the name of a friend, spouse, partner, wife, husband.
I was going to say...
They might make it for you.
I was going to say we might try and make that happen for you. Wouldn't that be fun? Maybe, I don't know, maybe. There's no guarantees, but if you send in your favourite cake idea, we might think about trying to make that happen.
Right.
Yeah, and obviously Richard will be making it, so good luck, Richard.
Right, yeah,
okay,
thanks.
Go off and get reading your Mary Berry books, because you've got some cakes to bake.
I'll look for that chef's hat. It also helped to hide the haircut.
Perfect.
Right. Bye.
Good luck with your baking. Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.